Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Go Premanandi. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Shri Panchatattva ki jai. Iskcon Newcastle Yatra ki jai. Agoda Premanandi. I'll open up the other one first so I don't have to go back to it. Open this one. And then we can swing from one to the next. Om Vijnana Timirandasya Dhananjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Apitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So this will be,
Shall I put it on the screen?
if you want. So yesterday we were between New York and where?
Butler.
Butler. Pittsburgh, yes, also on the bus. We went from New York to Pittsburgh, and then we went from Pittsburgh to Butler. And Prabhupada has just arrived in Butler, where his host, Gopal Agarwal, has received him. Well, first already received him at the bus station in Pittsburgh, and then drove him in his station wagon, Volkswagen station wagon, to Butler. And we heard the beginning of it. We'll probably hear it again tonight, so we won't mention that. The day before, we were basically, well, Prabhupada actually yesterday also arrived in New York, and he went from the boat, which, the Jaladuta, which docked in Brooklyn Pier. And then he went to the office, the Skindia steam office in Manhattan, to book his return fare. So, and then he went from there to the bus station, the Port Authority bus station, and caught his bus. All this was arranged by Gopal Agarwal so that he could safely come to Butler. So this evening we're going to be entering or being with Prabhupada in Butler, Pennsylvania. Has anybody here been to Butler? Anybody? You were there? Wow, I've never been. Small town, huh? It is small. And you were there on the anniversary ceremony or some other time? Oh, amazing. Did Hari Nam there? No? Mm-hmm. Pittsburgh we've been, but not Butler. So on this map, I guess you can see a map. Can you see a map? I don't know how clear it is, but Boston, New York, Butler. So the very top right-hand corner of the map, you see Massachusetts written there. Can you see it? And just underneath that to the right is Bost. It's meant to be Boston. It is Bost. On, Bostoff, Boston, Bostic. So that's Boston, that's where Boston is. We're at the port where Prabhupada first arrived, and the boat left there and went down northeast coast of America, United States, that is. From there down to, we see New York, you can see New York, center right, New York. So the boat docked there, and then Prabhupada caught the bus, which went then down southwest from New York towards Philadelphia. Can you see Philadelphia? See? Yes? Can. And then from Philadelphia, or maybe just before Philadelphia, the bus would have swung to the west, maybe most likely going past Harrisburg. Interesting enough, that route is very close to our Gita Nagari farm, and then swinging over all the way over on Route 76, probably, I think it's 76, all the way on 76, all the way to Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh was where Prabhupada got out of the bus and made his way to Butler. So that's just a little bit of a map of northeast United, some of, not all, but some of northeast United States. And imagine Prabhupada was alone traveling on that night bus. It was a Greyhound bus. This is a Greyhound bus, I believe. And this is something like the bus station was like in New York at that time. It was, they've rebuilt it all. It's not the same bus stand or bus station and what it was then. But this is supposed to be the New York Greyhound bus station in the mid-60s. I searched for pictures this morning of ancient pictures of some sites in New York and Butler. In Pittsburgh maybe also, I don't know. That's a typical Greyhound bus of 1965. They had a few variations, but that was a typical one. Looks interesting. It looks like standing potential in there. That's the Pittsburgh, what it was, the Pittsburgh terminal, about the time Prabhupada arrived in Pittsburgh. Because he arrived in the night, so he would not have, you can tell by the cars, you see, more or less. I looked up their website, so this is the year, more or less, of Prabhupada's arrival. And he would have arrived there, and middle of the night, may not have seen much, but Myron Prabhupada was there. Then he went to Butler, and this is the apartment block where Gopal and Sally Agarwal were living at the time. I don't say that was the door, there were 3 doors, but that's just one of the doors. So it could have been one of the other ones. I don't see the numbers on there. And this is where Prabhupada was sleeping. This is the YMCA. We heard about the YMCA last night. Because the Agarwal's house was very small, they couldn't really accommodate him. We'll hear more about that. But that's the YMCA where Prabhupada was staying. And this, apparently, I was told it's the room where Prabhupada stayed, but I don't know about that. But it was like this anyway, a small room, very small, with a bed and simple facilities where Prabhupada stayed in the YMCA. Okay, and now we're going to read something, I think. So when Prabhupada was in Butler, he actually received a letter. No, this is not in the right order. Yes, it is. This is a letter Prabhupada wrote to Samadhi Maharaji. I'm starting with this, although it's not in chronological order, partly because it sets the scene. So Prabhupada, of course, was feeling very grateful to Samadhi Maharaji. Hey, Bo, look who's here. Hare Krishna. Hari Bo. Welcome.
Thank you.
Jai Hare Krishna. Jai Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Hari Bo. Hari Bo, Sranga. Hari Bo, Guru Bhakti. Good to see you. So Prabhupada was feeling very grateful to Samadhi Maharaji for arranging nice facilities in the boat for his journey to America. And so he wrote to her, naturally. They were like, Samadhi Maharaji came to the manor when I was there one time, and you would have thought that it was his Prabhupada's sister. The way she looked, the way she walked, the way she talked. You would have, wouldn't have had much trouble in accepting, if someone said that's Prabhupada's sister, in accepting it. She had a lot in common with Prabhupada in many ways. A very, very well, just very well held lady. She was really, very cultured lady, very cultured. And she spoke at the manor, I remember, very nicely. So Prabhupada wrote her a letter, this, I don't know the date, maybe beginning of October sometime. It does say at the end, but I can't remember. By the grace of Lord Krishna, Prabhupada writes, The Americans are prosperous in every respect. They are not poverty-stricken like the Indians. That was back in '65. So the economic situation has probably changed considerably, but still, then it was very much so that India was considered a poverty-stricken country in general. The people in general are satisfied so far as their material needs are concerned, and they are spiritually inclined. When I was in Butler, Pennsylvania, about 500 miles from New York City, I saw there many churches, and they were attending regularly. This shows that they are spiritually inclined. I was also invited by some churches and church-governed schools and colleges, and I spoke there, and they appreciated and presented me some token rewards. When I was speaking to the students, they were very eager to hear about the principles of Srimad Bhagavatam. But the clergymen were cautious about allowing students to hear me so patiently. They feared that the students might be converted to Hindu ideas, as is quite natural for any religious sect. But they do not know that devotional service of the Lord Sri Krishna is the common religion for everyone, including even the Aborigines and the cannibals in the jungle. So that was Prabhupada, some of Prabhupada's letter to Samati Maharaji. She wrote back, we'll hear her reply later on. So now we're going to go, because we're just arriving in Butler, in the early hours of September the 20th, and we'll take up from there. September the 20th, Butler, Pennsylvania, home of the Jeep. You know what a Jeep is? What's a Jeep? Who knows what a Jeep is? In the Philippines, they call them jeepneys. The public transport, this kind of like, what do I say, kind of vehicles that drive around. They're like Jeeps, but bigger sized Jeeps that run around picking people up. Colourful, very colourful, jeepneys. So home of the Jeep. What's a Jeep? Who can tell us? What is a Jeep? You know, Srila.
Is it like an army?
Yeah, traditionally they were the army. They were the army vehicles, and you know it'd be like seats, like at the back, you know, one on each side with a cover over it. Army vehicle. They were called jeeps. They used to transport soldiers around, small ones, big ones, like that. Jeeps. So this Butler was the home of the Jeep. I mean, that's where they were. I guess that's where they started making them or something. I read a granite plaque in the city park. Yeah, here it says, Butler, famous as a town where the U.S. Army Jeep was invented in 1940, was an industrial city of 20,000 settled amid the hills of an area rich in oil, coal, gas and limestone. Its industry consisted mainly of factories for plate glass, railroad cars, refrigerators, oil equipment and rubber goods. 90% of the local laborers were Native Americans. The nominal religion had always been Christian, mostly Protestant with some Catholic, and in later years a few synagogues had appeared. But there was no Hindu community at that time. Gopal Agarwal was the first Indian to move to Butler. There's probably a few more now, I guess, but there were very few. Oh, you Gauraprabhupada, you want to go on the mobile phone? Hare Krishna. So Prabhupada was the second to stay there probably. Maybe other Indians had come to see Gopal, but there were no other Indians in Butler. It was a rarity to see an Indian person. Probably not so many black people either, probably. A very conservative town. As the Volkswagen bus pulled into town, the van, the pre-dawn air was warm and humid. The morning edition of the Butler Eagle would soon be going to the newsstands. These are some of the... In those days, you know, there were no mobile or internet news. Everything was by newspaper. They're not so common now, newspapers. Quite rare. Still there, but not so well read. So then it was newspapers, everybody read the newspaper. 2 or 3 editions daily, usually. We would get at least 2 or 3 newspapers a day in our house. You have to pay for them. But we get like 2 or 3 a day. 2 editions, the same one, and another kind of newspaper as well. So you get some various angles of the news. So it pulls, the news of the day was Red Chinese fire on India. Some skirmish between the Indians and Chinese. Prime Minister Shastri declares Chinese communists out to dominate the world. United Nations Council demands Pakistan and India ceasefire in 48 hours. So it looks like Pakistan and India were having a go at each other as well. Srila Prabhupada, there's obviously some news which might be related to Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada arrived at the Agarwal's home, which was in Sterling Apartments. I showed you an outside picture of that just now, at 4 a.m. and Gopal invited him to sleep on the couch. Their place, a townhouse apartment, consisted of a small living room, a dining room, a kitchenette, 2 upstairs rooms and a bath. They had lived there, here they lived with their 2 young children. The Agarwals had lived in Butler for a few years now and felt themselves established in a good social circle. Since their apartment had so little space, they decided it would be better if the Swami took a room at the YMCA and came to visit them during the day. Now I didn't transfer it over, but there's an interview with Sally Agarwal, which I don't have tonight. I have it on the computer, but I didn't put it on this here, where she goes into much more depth of description of how the rooms were used. She had 2 children, Bridge, and I've forgotten the daughter's name. The boy was named Bridge, little boy, maybe the size of Gora, Pran, something like that. And she had a daughter, I think the size. What's your youngest daughter's name?
Radhika.
Pardon?
Radhika.
Malika? Pardon? Radhika? Radhika. Radhika? Haribo, Radhika? Maybe the size of Radhika. So like that, she had 2 kids, and they were occupying the upstairs bedroom, and I guess Sally and Gopal were in the other bedroom, something like that. So they were packed out. They didn't have a very big place, it was just a little apartment, really. And so they put him in the YMCA. Of course, living space wasn't the real difficulty, it was him. This is such Maharaj. The embarrassment, in a sense, of having an Indian, elderly Indian gentleman stay in your house was a little odd in those days, you know. Not now, but in those days it was. How would he fit into the Butler atmosphere? He was their guest, so they would have to explain him to their friends and neighbors. And talk of the town, I remember when a first non-white person moved into our neighborhood, even in my town where I was born, which was a bit larger than Butler, that's for sure. It was like the talk of the town, you know. Oh, a black man moved in round the corner. Oh my God, what's happening? What's happening to this, you know? People were whispering and talking, what's going on? It was like a big event. Sally hurried off to a Pittsburgh newspaper office, but the interviewer wasn't able to comprehend why this person should make an interesting story. He was very clever. Sally thought that, you know, if everyone could ask her, why not put it in the news so that everyone finds out and I don't have to keep answering everyone. Intelligent. Sally then took him to the local Butler Eagle where his presence was accepted as indeed newsworthy. So that was the beginning of his time in Butler. I don't know how far we're going to go, but that's the beginning. And I'll read one letter. This is a letter to Prabhupada wrote to Narayan Maharaj. Whatever happened later on is another thing, but at this moment of time, Srila Prabhupada had a close, affectionate relationship with Narayan Maharaj. He was like his nephew, and they had a very close relationship there. Please accept my dandavats, Prabhupada offers obeisances, and also convey my dandavats to Muni Maharaj and of all the other Vaishnavas there. By the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, which means Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, of course, I have had so much work to do since I came to the West, that although I was thinking of writing you a letter, up until now I could not write. I came to stay here for 1 month. Is it on the screen? This is on the screen. Is it really?
Yeah, it's
That was clever. Yeah, how did you do that? Anyway, it's done. What's done is done. It's good. But if I can stay here longer, the work will be done well. Here they are naturally attracted to Christianity, but they also like to listen to me. Since I came here, I've been lecturing every day in a church, either in a church, school, college, club, or society. Their English is a little difficult for me to understand because they pronounce words differently. And our pronunciation of English is difficult for them to understand. But the work has not stopped because of this. They don't dislike my English. In the Butler Eagle newspaper, which is one of the largest publications, tiny little town with a tiny little newspaper, but I was saying one of the largest publications, they have printed this article. In fluent English, devotee of Hindu cult explains commission to visit West. A slight brown man in faded orange drapes, wearing white bathing shoes, stepped out of a compact car yesterday and into Butler YMCA to attend a meeting. He is A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, a messenger from India to the peoples of the West. A Hindu by faith, the learned teacher has translated biblical literatures such as Srimad Bhagavatam into English from ancient Sanskrit. He is now fulfilling a mission given to him by his spiritual master to enlighten English-speaking people about their relationship with God. I have explained in detail a short life history. Under my photograph I wrote, in large letters, Ambassador of Bhakti Yoga. Chanting the holy name of God is among the religious practices of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, who arrived on Monday for a month's stay in the Butler area as a missionary in the West. Pictured in the apartment of his sponsor in the United States, Gopal Agarwal, the Swamiji is residing in the YMCA and cooking his own meals in the Agarwal home. Every culture has religion, he says. We are all engaged in service of some sort. The highest service is to the Supreme Lord. The scholar-teacher has translated 60 volumes of Sanskrit scripture into English. This is quite interesting since in 1965 that wasn't the case. Prabhupada had done 3 volumes and a couple of small books, but not 60 volumes. But there is, Prabhupada has given some, biography. So they say in 60 volumes, so he's time, place, and service, time, past, present, and future. Prabhupada is speaking into the future here. 60 volumes. He would do that sometimes, talk in the future. Even you may remember when he went back to New York, there was, of course we don't know absolutely what was said, but what we've heard was said. He met one subway worker or something in the park there when the man was asking him what he was doing in India and in America and so on. And the man asked if you had some temple or something here. He said, yes, we have many temples, many followers, and many everything. But there was nothing at that point of time. Prabhupada had no fixed residence, what to speak of followers. So he was like, seeing the future. The nature of pure devotees. And, not very impressive. You could say, I'm hoping to write some books, or maybe I can get a temple in the future, or maybe someone will listen to me. It's not very impressive, but saying like that is quite convincing. But he could see what was going to happen by Lord Chaitanya's grace. Now, 70 years old, the appointed missionary to the United States was educated in India up to the Bachelor of Arts. He became a disciple in 1933 and received instructions until the death of his leader in 1936. He has severed all family ties, forsaking wife, children, and a business in Calcutta to follow his beliefs. To cross the Atlantic Ocean took 10 days. This great sea is usually full of storms and fog and is very disturbing, but by the mercy of Krishna there was no disturbance. The captain of the ship, the main officer, told me, this kind of quiet Atlantic I have never seen in my life. I told him that this is only by Krishna's mercy, nothing else. After the troublesome storm in the Arabian Sea, I knew that if I had to face another storm like that again, I would die. I don't know if this is part of the article. No, I think it's not. This letter, isn't it? It's a letter to Narayan Maharaj. I am thinking that the preaching will be very good here. I am lecturing some days for an hour and some days for half an hour. The people of America are now tasting some new thing. This is the first time I have come to a foreign country, crossing 12,000 miles. All here are outcasts, meaning not followers of the Varnashram Dharma system. Anyone who doesn't follow that system is considered an outcast. Yet I'm never afraid to speak in front of them. For the first time in my life, I delivered a speech in a church. The main thing is that I am alone, and I am in my old age. Because of this, crossing 12,000 miles in a ship, I became very sick. I crossed the Bay of Bengal, Indian Ocean, Arabian Sea, Red Sea, Mediterranean Sea, and Atlantic Ocean. I passed through Asia, Europe, and Africa. I crossed 3 oceans and seas and became so sick. Due to my request, they served me vegetarian meals on the ship, yet I could not take them. I fasted continuously for 8 to 10 days. The pitta or fire in my stomach or in my body increased so much that I suffered terribly from colic pain. Afterwards, the captain of the ship purchased an electric stove for me in Port Said. That's in Egypt, if you don't know where it is. I then cooked for myself and took prasadam. If they hadn't managed this stove for me, maybe there would have been no possibility for me reaching America. I could have died on the way, but instead Krishna mercifully brought me here. Why Krishna has brought me here, only he knows. It is very expensive here. One room I found in the YMCA has a weekly rent of 55 rupees. Woo! Do you imagine that? 55 rupees for a week, the rent. Whew. Nowadays, that's not even £1, is it? About 60 cents or something? Maybe.
118.
Huh?
118.
Oh, rupees to a pound?
Yeah.
Whoa, it's not even that, it's not even 50 cents. About 45 cents or something per day, per week, rent. Can you imagine? Renting a room for 45 pence a week? Whew. Incredible. But to Prabhupada, that was a lot of money. Everybody has a motor car. Oh, no, excuse me. The laborers earn more here than gentlemen in India. They are paid 80 to 85 or 90 rupees daily. Whew. 80 to 90 rupees a day. That's a lot, isn't it? That's about 80 pence a day. Would you work for 80 pence a day? That was like a good wage, you know. Would you get very far on 80 pence a day? Of course, it's worth a lot more now. 80 pence then was, you know, it wasn't much, but it was something. Every civilized person, no, everybody has a motor car since all the offices and markets are very far away. Every civilized person has one car, which costs 10,000 rupees each. In India, that same car would cost 50,000 rupees. Probably saying it's expensive, but the cars, petrol, everything's cheaper in America. People drive the cars themselves. They have no paid drivers to do it for them. You know, in India at that time, other than taxis, anyone who had a car usually had a lot of money. They'd have a chauffeur to drive them. Individual people didn't have cars unless they were rich. Very rare, very rare. Nor do they keep servants. There are lakhs and lakhs of motor cars. When I came from New York to Butler, I saw that on 2 lanes, for 500 miles, there was a solid line of cars. There was no need of electric lights because there were so many cars. At night in the city, the shops are lit up and it appears like daytime. There are so many bridges and flyovers that the cars never need to pass each other on narrow roads. Every motor car is generally going not less than 50 miles an hour. Many houses are 25 to 30 stories high. Obviously not the same person's house in most cases, but you get the idea. In this neighborhood, there are cottages built on small plots. The people are very civilized, but they are ugra, high-tempered, not polite and humble, or humble. Ugra. People are Ugra. Ugra saying. Today in New York, the Pope came. He wasn't there when he came, but he was just mentioning this. On television, everyone saw this. Television is an amazing thing. At that time, they'd never seen a television in India. Just staying in one room, they can watch how the whole world is going on and how they are all corresponding with each other. The days are passed in vain work and the night times in sleep. Here, people are generally non-vegetarian. Without meat, they cannot eat anything. I've been taking muri, puffed rice and peanuts with mustard oil. Somewhere I found mustard oil. Everything is available, but the price is so high. I purchased 250 grams of mustard oil for 5 rupees. Whew. I had to travel to a shop 20 miles distant to get it. If you want to come to this country, reply to me. Swami Maharaj. That was 4th of October, Prabhupada wrote that letter, 65. We'll go back to Prabhupada in Butler, and we'll hear some more things later on about his time in Butler, but these are some of the preaching engagements maybe. I think we read that part of this article already, but a featured article in the Butler Eagle. It says, in fluent English, devotee of Hindu cult explains commission to visit the West. So a photographer had come to the Agarwal apartment and taken a picture of Prabhupada standing in the living room, holding an open volume of Srimad Bhagavatam. The caption read, Ambassador of Bhakti Yoga. I do have a picture of that, but I don't know if you'll be able to see it because we're switching between screens. There it is. You see it? Is it on the screen?
It is on.
So that's the picture they put in the Butler Eagle. Prabhupada stood there holding his Srimad Bhagavatam, and I guess that's the wallpaper or whatever in the Agarwal's home there behind him. Famous picture. I don't have a view screen here, so I can't see what picture's next. Okay, so we'll go back to the article. And I think we read this more or less, at least some of it. A slight brown man in faded orange drapes and wearing white bathing shoes stepped out of a compact car yesterday into the Butler YMCA. He is A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swamiji, a messenger from India for the people of the West. Prabhupada said, my mission is to revive a people's God consciousness. To revive it. To revive their God consciousness. God is the Father of all living beings in thousands of different forms, he explains. Human life is a stage of perfection in the evolution. If we miss the message, back we go through the process again. He believes. Bhaktivedanta lives as a monk and permits no woman to touch his food. Don't know where they got that from. On a 6-week ocean voyage and at the Agarwal apartment in Butler, he prepares his meals in a brass pan with separate levels for steaming rice, vegetables and making bread at the same time. The bread is the chapati, it's not exactly bread as we know it. Chapatis. And we heard yesterday how Prabhupada said that he had this 3-tier cooker, but he said it wasn't the one he had in India, he got another one from somewhere. And he was cooking the meals there both for himself and for Gopal and Sally Agarwal. He would cook for them too, and Gopal was very happy to receive cooking, Indian style cooking. He hasn't been getting it. He's a strict vegetarian and is permitted to drink only milk. The miracle food for babies and old man, he said, or he noted. If Americans would give more attention to their spiritual life, they would be much happier, he says. Yeah, Agarwals had their own opinion as to why Prabhupada had come to America, to finance his books and nothing more. That's what they were thinking. They were sure that he was hoping only to meet someone who could help him with the publication of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and he did not want any followers. At least they hoped he wouldn't do anything to attract attention, and they felt that that was his mentality also. He didn't create waves, Sadi Agarwal says. He didn't want any crowd. He didn't want anything. He only wanted to finance his books. Perhaps Prabhupada, seeing their nervousness, agreed to keep a low profile out of consideration for his hosts. At Prabhupada's request, however, Mr. Agarwal held a kind of open house in his apartment every night from 6 to 9. Sally, it was quite an intellectual group that we were in, and they were fascinated by him. They hardly knew what to ask him. They didn't know enough. This was just like a dream out of a book. Who would expect to meet a Swami in someone's living room in Butler, Pennsylvania? You can imagine, huh? In those days, he was the only one Vaishnava Swami in America. And there in Butler, a tiny little place of no really much significance. And there is this Swami, and you're meeting him in somebody's living room. Quite unique. It was really a tremendous. In the middle of middle-class America, my parents came from quite a distance to see him. We knew a lot of people in Pittsburgh, and they came up. This was a very unusual thing, having him here. But the real interest shown in him was only as a curiosity. He had a typewriter, which was one of his few possessions, and an umbrella. That was one of the things that caused the sensation. He always carried an umbrella. And it was a little chilly, and he was balding, so he always wore this hat that someone had made for him, like a swimming cap. We used to call them Swami hats, you know, like cloth, cotton hat, and things that come down here like this, you know, maybe a little button under here. Swami hat. Yeah. And he was so brilliant. It was a kind of sensation. It was so brilliant that when he saw someone twice, he knew who they were. He remembered. He was a brilliant man. Or if he met them on our apartment and saw them in a car, he would remember their name, and he would wave and say their name. He was a brilliant man. All the people liked him. They were amazed at how intelligent he was. The thing that got them was the way he remembered their name, and his humorous way. He looked so serious all the time, but he was a very humorous person. He was forbidding in his looks, but he was very charming. He was the easiest guest I had in my life, because when I couldn't spend time with him, he chanted. And I knew he was perfectly happy. When I couldn't talk to him, he chanted. He was so easy. He was so easy, though. Excuse me. He was so easy. He was a very good guest. Where did I get to? Anyway, he was a very good guest. When the people would come, they were always smoking cigarettes. But he would say, pay no attention, think nothing of it. That's what he said, think nothing of it. Because he knew we were different. I didn't smoke in front of him. I knew I wasn't supposed to smoke in front of Gopal's father. So I sort of considered him the same. He didn't make any problems for anybody. One evening, a guest asked Prabhupada, what do you think of Jesus Christ? And Prabhupada replied, he is the Son of God. Then he added that he, the guest, was also a son of God. Everyone was interested to hear the Swami that he accepted Jesus Christ as the Son of God. Gopal, his intent was not to have you change your way of life. He wasn't telling anybody they should be vegetarian or anything. All he wanted you to do was to follow what you are, but be better. He didn't stress that we should give up many things. Srila Prabhupada followed a regulated daily schedule. Every morning he would walk the 6 or 7 blocks from the YMCA to the Sterling Apartments, arriving there about 7 o'clock. When he had first landed in New York, he had in his luggage a large bundle of dried cereal, similar to rolled oats, chip rice, flat rice. This supply was enough for several weeks, and every morning at breakfast he would take some with his milk. At 7:45, Gopal would leave for work, and around 9:30, Prabhupada would start preparing his lunch in the kitchen. He made his chapatis by hand without even a rolling pin. Flatten them. He worked alone for 2 hours, while Mrs. Agarwal did housework and took care of her children. 11:30, he took prasadam. Sally, when he cooked, he used only one burner. The bottom level pot created the steam. He had the dal on the bottom, and it created the steam to cook many other vegetables. So for about a week, he was cooking this great big lunch. which was ready about 11:30, and Gopal always came home for lunch about 12. I used to serve Gopal a sandwich and then he would go back to work. But it didn't take me long to realize that the food the Swami was cooking, we'd enjoy it too. So he started cooking that new meal for all of us. Oh, and we enjoyed it so much. Wow. And out of all the people in the world, this couple, the Agarwals, were getting daily lunch cooked by Prabhupada. Isn't that incredible? I don't know if anyone else in the movement ever had that exact privilege, you know. Really special. He must have been special people somehow. Our fun was to show him what we knew of America, and he had never seen such things. It was such fun to take him to the supermarket. He loved opening the packages of okra or frozen beans, and he didn't have to clean them and cut them and do all those things. He opened the freezer every day and just chose his items. It was fun to watch him. He sat on the couch while I swept with the vacuum cleaner, and he was so interested in that. And he talked for a long time about that. He was so interesting. So every day we'd have this big feast, and everything was great fun. We really enjoyed it. I would help him cut the things. He would spice it and we would laugh. He was the most enjoyable man. I really felt like a sort of daughter to him, even in such a short time. Like he was my father-in-law. He was friend of my father-in-law, but I really felt very close to him. He enjoyed everything. I liked him. I thought he was tremendous. This is Sally Agarwal talking, of course. After lunch, Prabhupada would leave about 1 p.m. and walk to the YMCA, where the Agarwals figured he must have worked at his writing until about 5. He would come back to their apartment about 6 in the evening after they had taken their meal. They ate meat, so Mrs. Agarwal was careful to have it cleared away before he came. One night he came early. She said, "Oh, Swamiji, we've just cooked meat and the smell will be very disagreeable to you." But he said, "Oh, think nothing of it, think nothing of it." In the evening he would speak to guests, or with guests. The guests would usually take coffee and other refreshments, but he would request a glass of warm milk at 9 o'clock. He would stay speaking until 9:30 or 10, and then Mr. Agarwal would drive him back to the YMCA. Prabhupada would also do his own laundry every day. He washed his clothes in the Agarwal's bathroom and hung them to dry outside. Now this is just a short version of the conversation which Prabhupada had with Sally Agarwal. Actually what Prabhupada was doing in the bathroom, this little American apartment, he was washing his clothes in the sink and wringing them out. There was water all over the floor, and the water was dripping through the floor. So she got a little bit concerned and had to kind of almost admonish Srila Prabhupada to not wash his clothes in the bathroom, because you don't do that in America. People don't wash their own clothes. It's the last thing you do. So I wish I had it. I did have it, but I didn't put it in here. And yeah, so she was very concerned. Then Prabhupada would take it onto the lawn at the back and put them out like you do in India. Sometimes you see on the fields, the laundry, the cloth is just spread out on top of the grass. He would spread all this cloth out on the grass like that for drying. Quite a scene. He was doing just the same thing as he did in India, basically. He sometimes accompanied the Agarwals to the laundromat and was interested to see how Americans washed and dried their clothes. To Sally, he seemed very interested in the American ways and people. Prabhupada may not have been interested in the same way that we are, but he wanted to, understand how the Americans lived and what their, reactions and culture was, so they could communicate with them in a way which they could relate with. So he was just studying their ways and behavior. Sally. Our son Bridge was 6 to 7 months old when the Swami came, and the Indians love boys. The Swami liked Bridge. He was there when Bridge first stood. The first time Bridge made the attempt and actually succeeded. I'm going to swing back to the pictures, and this is a picture of Prabhupada with Bridge. This is Bridge making his first time he stood on his 2 feet. And Prabhupada's holding. You can see how happy Prabhupada is. He's absolutely enamored and fascinated with the achievement of this young kid, Bridge. And this is Prabhupada cooking, although it doesn't show too much about the pots and pans, but he's in the Agarwal's kitchen. This is literally in their kitchen, and he's cooking lunch, presumably lunch. Yeah, I think chapati is in the flat pan there. I think it looks like a chapati anyway, in the pan. Prabhupada's preparing his lunch. What's the next one? Oh, I'll go back. So, yeah. Swami liked Bridge, so he was there when he first stood. The first time Bridge made the attempt to, and actually succeeded, the Swami stood up and clapped. It was a celebration. Another time, our baby teased on the Swami's shoes. I don't know if you've had the experience of your kids teething. Sometimes they like to chew things, huh? Put things in their mouth and chew away, anything. So little Bridge picked up one of Prabhupada's shoes and started to chew it in his mouth, or tried to. No teeth, but you know, bah. And then so it was kind of quite a thing. Where are we here? Oh no, she thought, those shoes, they've been all over India, my kid is chewing on them. You know how her mother would feel. Almost every night, what you'd consider, imagine, I don't know, transcendently, I guess it was an amazing act, but chewing on the spiritual master's shoes. Almost every night he used to sit in the next door neighbor's backyard. I don't know if he knew it was their yard. We sat out there sometimes with him, or we stayed in the living room. One time something happened with our little girl Kamala, who was only 3 years old. I used to take her to Sunday school, and she learned about Jesus in Sunday school. Then when she would see Swamiji with his robes on and everything, she called him Swami Jesus. And this one time, when it first dawned on us what she was saying, she called him Swami Jesus. And Swami smiled and said, and a little child shall lead them. It was so funny. You see that in the Bible also, that statement. Prabhupada spoke to various groups in the community. He spoke at the Lions Club in early October and received a formal document. And this was the Lions Club at that time. They moved their property a few times, but I traced it down to this was the building. Prabhupada walked, probably, I can't guarantee it, but probably walked in that door to give a talk in the Lions Club. You know what Lions Club is? It's not a club where there are all lions sat in there. You were speaking to the lions. Lord Nrsimhadevi dressed up as... No, Lions Club. What is a Lions Club? I don't know if you have them in England or not, do you?
It's a donation of the eyes and...
Pardon?
I think they donate the eye.
They donate eyes. I don't know if that's really what... They may do that, but it is more than just an eye donation club. What is a Lions Club? Strang? Is that Strang?
It's like a philanthropic society.
A philanthropic society, generally of respectable people in society, meet together and try to arrange help for various needed situations. Philanthropic society, usually very well-to-do people. It's they themselves, they're well-to-do, but they want to help others who are not. So that was the Lions Club. He spoke there. There's nothing said much about what he said, but he did receive a formal document, and this is from the Lions Club. Be it known that A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami was a guest at the Lions Club of Butler, Pennsylvania, and as an expression of appreciation for services rendered, the club tenders this acknowledgement. A little useful if you're going to other places to speak that you've been recognized. He also gave a talk at the Y and at, I don't know what the Y is, and at the St. Fidelis Seminary College in Herman, Pennsylvania. And he spoke regularly to guests in the Agarwal's home. Now we go back. then we'll see. This is the Saint Fidelis, Saint Fidelis, whatever it was. It's a seminary, like a monastery type, not a monastery, like a monastic place where they used to teach, monks and young Christians and things. So that's one of the places, quite an impressive building. It's about 10 kilometers or something like that out of Butler, just outside the city. And Prabhupada spoke there also. There's a postcard. I found these old postcards of the various buildings where Prabhupada went. St. Fidelis Seminary, 1965, that one. And then, so that was another speech which he made. That's where the Christian monks were a little bit worried. He was speaking to these young men who were being trained in, theology or something, And then another important event took place. When that article came up in the Butler Eagle, one professor in a nearby university, this university is not too far from Butler, and it's called Slippery Rock. It's a state college, it's university now, Slippery Rock State College. When Professor Larson, the chairman of the philosophy department at Slippery Rock State College, read in the Butler Eagle of a visiting Indian Swami and Vedic scholar, he phoned the Agarwal's home to invite Prabhupada to lecture on campus. Alan Larson: I called the number given in the newspaper article, but it turned out the Swamiji was actually staying in a room at the YMCA. When I arrived, he was waiting on the street corner, and I picked him up. He seemed very much alone. When we were driving to Slippery Rock, I asked him to pronounce his name for me, so I'd have it right when I introduced him to my class. He said, Swamiji Bhaktivedanta. And then he proceeded to tell me what that meant. Since I was not used to Indian names, he had to repeat it several times before I got it right. He showed no impatience with my slowness. Even at its early junction of our association, I was convinced that this man had an inner stability and strength that would be very difficult to shake. And this initial impression was further reinforced throughout the rather busy day. Now we'll show you a picture of that college. First of all, it's 22 miles north of Butler, where that Slippery Rock State College was. The Butler at the bottom there, and they went up that road to Slippery Rock. And Prabhupada gave a talk there. And this is again a postcard of the main building at that time of that particular state college. Very nice. They used to make college campus grounds were always very, very, very nice. There was many trees and lakes and parks and so on for the students. Okay, that's the end of that one. So Prabhupada spoke there during the day. 100 students from several classes had gathered to hear the lecture. As Prabhupada, in his natural, unrehearsed manner, walked down the aisle, up to 3 wooden steps, and onto the plain wooden stage, he sat down erect and cross-legged and began softly singing Hare Krishna, his eyes closed. Then he stood and spoke without a lectern or microphone and answered questions from the audience. The program lasted only 50 minutes and ended abruptly with a bell signaling the next class. Alan Larson: after the first class, I had a short conversation with the Swamiji while sitting outside on a bench on the campus lawn. Most of the time when he was not directly engaged in conversation, he would repeat a short prayer while moving prayer beads through his fingers. He was sitting up cross-legged, and we were speaking back and forth. He said that the trees around us were beautiful, and he asked, what kind of trees are these? I replied, they're shade trees. Then he said that it was too bad they weren't fruit or nut trees to provide food and benefit people. Actually, Alan Larson said, I agreed with him. It isn't mentioned here. It would be good if they were nuts and fruit trees. At 1 o'clock, Prabhupada lectured again. Afterwards, he accompanied Dr. Mohan Sharma, it must have been an Indian man, of course, a member of the faculty who had attended the lecture, and his 16-year-old daughter, Minnie, to Dr. Sharma's campus residence. Prabhupada accepted warm milk and dried fruit. and at Dr. Sharma's request, blessed his home and touched the forehead of his daughter in a gesture of benediction. Around 3 o'clock, Professor Larson drove him back to Butler. Alan Larson, the Swamiji seemed to present himself as an Indian scholar who would come for a short time to do translation work. I never thought of him as a missionary, but during the course of the day there grew in me a warm affection for this man, because he was unmistakably a good man who had found his way to a stability and peace that is very rare. The lectures in Pennsylvania gave Prabhupada his first readings of how his message would be received in America. At Commonwealth Pier in Boston, he had stated in his poem, "I'm sure that when this transcendental message penetrates their hearts, they will certainly feel gladdened and thus become liberated from all unhappy conditions of life." Now, this principle was actually being tested in the field. Would they be able to understand? Were they interested? Would they surrender? And on October the 15th, just before Prabhupada left Butler, he received a letter from Samadhi Maharaji. Puja Swami, I am in due receipt of your letter dated 24th ultimo, and glad to know that you have safely reached the USA after suffering from seasickness. I thank you for your greetings and blessings. I know by now that you must have recovered fully from the sickness and must be keeping good health. I was delighted to read that you have started your activities in the States and have already delivered some lectures. I pray to Lord Balkrishna to give you enough strength to enable you to carry the message of Sri Bhagavan. I feel that you should stay there until you fully recover from your illness and return only after you have completed your mission. Oh, here everything is normal. With respects, yours sincerely, Srimati Maharaji. Prabhupada regarded the last line of this letter as especially significant. His well-wisher was urging him to stay in America until he had completed his mission. He had told the immigration officials in New York he would be staying for 2 months. I have 1 month sponsorship in Butler, he thought. Then I have no support, so perhaps I can stay another month. So he had said 2 months. Srimati Maharaji, however, was urging him to stay on. He saw that the prospects for preaching to the Americans were good, but he felt he would need support from India. At any rate, he had spent long enough in Butler, and he now had 1 month left in America. So he decided to go to New York City and try to preach there before his time was up. But first he wanted to visit Philadelphia, where he had arranged a meeting with a Sanskrit scholar, Dr. Norman Brown, at the University of Pennsylvania. Mrs. Agarwal was sorry to see him go. Sally, after a month, I really loved the Swami. I felt protective in a way, and he wanted to go to Philadelphia, but I couldn't imagine. I told him I could not imagine him going to Philadelphia for 2 days. He was going to speak there and then to New York, but he knew no one in New York. If the thing didn't pan out in Philadelphia, he was just going straight to New York, and then there was no one. I just couldn't imagine. It made me sick. I remember the night he was leaving, about 2 in the morning, I remember sitting there as long as he could wait before Gopal took him to Pittsburgh to get on that bus. Gopal got a handful of change, and I remember telling him how to put the money in the slot so that he could take a bath at the bus station, because he was supposed to take a bath a few times a day. And Gopal told him how to do that, and told him about the automats in New York. He told him what he could eat and what he couldn't eat, and he gave him these coins in a sock. That's all he left us with. As a sannyasi, Srila Prabhupada was used to picking up and leaving one place for another. As a mendicant preacher, he had no remorse about leaving behind the quiet life of the Butler YMCA, and he had no attachment for the domestic habitat, where he would cook and talk with Sally Agarwal about vacuum cleaners, frozen foods, and American ways. But why had he gone to Butler, and why was he going to New York? He saw it as Krishna's grace. As a pure devotee of Krishna, he wanted to be an instrument for distributing Krishna consciousness. His stay in Butler had been helpful. He had gotten first-hand experience of American life, and he gained confidence that his health was strong and his message communicable. He was glad to see that America had the necessary ingredients for his Indian vegetarian diet and that people could understand his English. He had learned that casual, one-time lectures here and there were of limited value, that although there would be opposition from the established religions, people individually were very much interested in what he had to say. On October the 18th, he left Butler via Philadelphia for New York City. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. There's a lot, again I say this interview which Satyaraj Prabhu had recorded in the Back to Godhead magazine with Sally Agarwal and others, goes into more depth of Sally Agarwal's feelings towards Prabhupada. She describes him as the most humble, pure-hearted person, and so many wonderful words she was expressing in regards to Srila Prabhupada. An ordinary American lady with so much appreciation for Srila Prabhupada. It wasn't what he said so much, but just by his conscious being, his presence, his behavior, his attitude. Krishna consciousness movement is attracting mainly on that basis of the behavior. As Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has explained, that religious principles are established by the behavior of a devotee, not by what they say, but by their behavior. So Srila Prabhupada's behavior completely captivated the heart of Sally Agarwal. She was so attracted. So we can bear that in mind. Hare Krishna. Thank you all very much. Are there any questions? Yes, Guru Bhakti.
We often hear statements of Prabhupada saying, for example, health, sadhana, service. As well, I recently heard one Christian activist who was killed. He just was killed a few days ago. So he was a Christian preacher. So he said something like, in his life he puts God first, then family, then country. So in our life as devotees, for example, family people, is it still the same sort of formula? God, priorities, God, family, and then country, or in our case, service probably.
Yeah. Well, I would let's say, address that in terms of a very wonderful thing because it's Krishna consciousness. It's not just a process leading to an objective goal. It's a state of consciousness. So what is the meaning of putting God in the center? What does it mean to us? What would that mean to you, putting God in the center?
Just, chant your rounds every day as early as possible.
If your child was sick, would you chant your rounds?
No.
You look after your child, would you? You're going to use your common sense. Now, why are you doing that? Now, it may be because we're attached to the child. It may be out of duty. It may be some other reasons. But we understand. Just same thing with this body. Sometimes we hear that Prabhupada said first health, and then your practice of devotional service. So the devotee sees everything in relationship with Krishna. That's Krishna consciousness. So it's not necessarily, it may be in terms of ultimate goal of life is to love God. But in our practical dealings, we see our family in relationship with God. We don't see them as outside of the realm of God consciousness or inferior to that objective purpose of Krishna consciousness. We try to see Krishna consciousness in everything we do, whether it's our work, whether it's our family, whether it's our studies, whatever it may be, our sadhana, of course. We try to always have that in mind. It's not like Sunday, one day a week, you go to church or something. Krishna consciousness is 24/7. We're trying to be conscious of Krishna in everything we do. This is a primary instruction or a guideline of Bhagavad Gita. In all that you do, be conscious of me. So in that way, it's not like a sort of like, oh, don't bother me now, I've got to put Krishna in the center, you know? Would you say the same thing if Krishna came in your room? Can you come back later? I'm chanting my rounds, you know? And there's Krishna stood there, you don't know who it is, you know? Come back later, I've got to chant my rounds, I'm trying to be Krishna conscious. Why, don't bother me now, please. You know, it's got to be a little bit broader than just boom, 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 like a machine. We're not machines. Now, for those who are, let's say, whatever stage we're on, sometimes you have to give a little bit ABC in terms of a bit more black and white. But ultimately, it's not, because everything is related to Krishna. Everything is his property. Everybody, and when Krishna sends you a child, this is Krishna's blessing, his mercy, and it's our good fortune if we see that child. And we can't force, the child is an individual soul, but we give that child every loving opportunity we can to become attracted to Krishna. We see that caring for the child is actually service to Krishna in the sense that we're trying to do that, not just because it's our child or it's our duty, but to give the child an opportunity to become attracted to Krishna. So it's an act of devotion. Every activity in Grihastha life can be seen as an act of devotion. Again, it depends on our consciousness, because putting Krishna in the center means, one aspect of it, certainly it means to act in the way Krishna will be pleased, but it also means to be conscious of Krishna. So being conscious of Krishna, Arjuna was not chanting 16 rounds. He wasn't going up for Mangal Arati. He wasn't doing Arati before the Battle of Kurukshetra began. You know, I don't need problem, maybe he's offering his food, I don't know. But he wasn't studying. Hold on, hold the battle up, I haven't finished my morning 1 hour's reading yet. I've still got 9 rounds left. Can you tell Karna to wait? I've still got 9 rounds left, you know. This wasn't the case. But Arjuna was completely Krishna conscious. He was fighting, that was his role. So knowing what our priorities are in relationship with Krishna, try to see it like that. So we don't have to be so, we might say that sometimes, that's to remind us, you know, that we should be conscious of Krishna, that first and foremost in family life is Krishna's in the center. But that doesn't mean you put Krishna in the center and it doesn't matter what you do in your family life. They go on simultaneously. In your family life you try to put Krishna in the center, it doesn't mean, you know, you forget your family life and just put Krishna in the center, you don't. You both go on simultaneously. That applies in everything we do, basically. Is that okay? Anything else? Any other comments? Maybe you can think of something else about Prabhupada's stay in Butler. I mean, you could look at, I was looking at the streets that Prabhupada would have walked down. You can do that, you go on Google Maps, you can sort of, most of the houses are probably still there, I wouldn't be surprised. You can imagine walking down the street with Srila Prabhupada in Butler on a morning walk. Yes, Chandra.
Krishna Maharaj, I was thinking, I missed the class yesterday. I was
Did you?
supposed to do the baby, but
Yeah.
I was here before yesterday. And I found it just amazing that this compilation that you made and the research you made. And is it something, you know, maybe...
Well, it's all there in the various places in the books. I'm sure someone else has done a much more comprehensive. I would have done, but I've just had no time.
So I was thinking, maybe, is it something you're thinking of publishing?
No, I just did it a few days ago. I did one bit on Sunday, one bit yesterday, and one bit this morning. I mean, I could, you know, but I'd have to do a lot more study and put it in better order. I've got quite a few other bits and pieces which I didn't incorporate or mention tonight on this stay in Butler, to put it into a format. Yeah, it would be nice to meditate on Prabhupada's arrival. I think it's very kind of, gives a lot of strength to us to realize what Prabhupada went through and to remember that and be conscious of that, what he had to tolerate and what he, you know, alone, completely alone in that circumstance. Something we don't really see much example of these days. Someone was telling, I was talking to Dhananjaya Prabhu and Saraswati this afternoon, just remembering how, how devotees were so bold. Now, he came in a bit after that era, but when I joined it was still like that. You'd be sent out pretty much as soon as you joined, sometimes on your own, to open up a temple somewhere. Devotees were very bold, very almost fearless almost, because they had confidence in Prabhupada. They were very much taking shot. Oh, you're a little bit late tonight, lady.
Yes.
Oh, you came together. Wow, better late than never. I was thinking of you. I wondered if you were going to join us or not. You had college today?
Yes.
Studies, huh?
My nephew.
Your nephew?
Yes.
Oh, very good. Well, wonderful. Thank you. Are you also studying here?
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, you're home. Just talk to the devotees whenever you're free. Please come. Yeah. Yeah, it's nice to have that. And the Lilamritas, as we mentioned on the first day, is many things were not known when Satsvarup Maharaj compiled it, and there's a lot of writers licensed there, no doubt. But he's done a remarkable job of piecing it all together in a way which is so readable and so informative and so attractive. Remarkable, as others have in their own eras of association with Prabhupada, whether it's Samsundar or Hari Sori or Shruti Kirti, Mukunda, and so many others who put together their biographies, or their, not so much a biography, but their remembrances of Srila Prabhupada, or their realizations, their time with Srila Prabhupada. We don't want to spend our whole life in it. We want to fulfill, as I mentioned maybe last night, the day before, I can't remember, or maybe it was this morning online, I think, about our relationship with Prabhupada. Every devotee has a relationship with Srila Prabhupada, even you, every one of us here, you do too. You may not know quite what it is, but you do have a relationship with him. At least it's through the inspiration, the instructions which Srila Prabhupada has given us. So for most of us, our relationship with Prabhupada was one of serving his will. There are two kinds. Gargamuni mentioned it. I think Prabhupada told him this, that he said that there are two types of devotees, the father and the mother. Fatherly devotees and motherly devotees. Said the motherly devotees, they're very much concerned with the institution, the maintenance. They're both important with maintenance of the institution. The fatherly ones are the ones who want to spread the institution, to serve the message of the spiritual master, to spread it to others. So whatever it is, our business is to serve the will of the spiritual master. That's how we attract the attention of Krishna. Prabhupada said, don't try to see Krishna, act in a way Krishna will see you. So the way that works is that we serve Krishna's representative. Can't directly go to him. We serve his representative as best we can by finding out what he wants and trying to do it. We don't know, we ask. Try to do things the way that Krishna's representative would like. The secret of success is service to the spiritual master in Krishna consciousness. And service means not necessarily according to the way we would like to do it, but what Prabhupada wants, what he would like, how he would like it. Just whatever it is we're doing, we can keep that in mind of thinking, it's just the way Prabhupada would like it. Obviously we're not always up to the mark, but as much as possible, is this how Prabhupada would like me to behave? Would he like me to dress like this? Would he like me to eat like this? Would he like me to live like this, work like this, talk like this? This is, even in a family or in love between a man and a woman, the woman is all probably quite concerned to behave in a way that will attract the boy's attention, quite likely. Vice versa, maybe also. Especially the lady, to dress in a certain way, put the right perfume on, and talk the way, if he wants to attract the attention of a boy, she'll do those things. So we don't know how to attract Krishna's attention, so we learn from those who are dear representatives of the Lord, pure devotees of the Lord. They can show us how to be Krishna conscious, what to do to awaken our dormant love of God, which is what Prabhupada came to do, as we heard in the beginning, to awaken that. to remind us of our relationship with Krishna. And because they're always thinking of Krishna whenever you're around a pure devotee of the Lord, you naturally, even if you're talking of washing machines and floor cleaners and whatever else, your frozen food, then Prabhupada would always relate that to Krishna. Even if he didn't say it, he was relating it to Krishna. Whether he was talking with what's his name, forgotten, motor racing expert, and Prabhupada would talk to him about motor racing, but he would always be bringing it back to relating it to Krishna. He'd always bring the conversation somewhere along the line towards Krishna. And so everything in our life is like that. The expertise of a pure devotee who sees everyone and everything in relationship with Krishna and helps us to do likewise. Anything else? Thank you. Okay. Oh, yes, Vashishresh.
I think it was really interesting, Maharaj, that how Srila Prabhupada has a comfortable life in Butler. He was getting prasadam, he had an accommodation to stay, but still he took that step to step into that discomfort.
Yeah, well, the risk, you could say. I mean, stepping into don't know what, basically speaking. He had an address of Dr. Mishra. It was not completely empty. He had communicated with this yoga teacher in New York named Dr. Mishra, who was willing to give him some kind of initial, only very initial, shelter there in his apartment, yoga studio. So he had some little thing there, but nothing confirmed and nothing, didn't know what it was either. So it was quite risky, you could say. And he had no money as well, of course, or very little. It was quite something. Yeah, it is. But we see that. I mean, you take an example, for instance, third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Devahuti and Lord Kapila Dev, how Kardama Muni, was going to leave home after Devahuti had many daughters, but she approached him and begged him, I need a son. So he gave her a son, who was none other than an expansion of the Lord, at least a partial expansion of the Lord as Kapila. And immediately after the child was born, maybe a little while later, Kardama left home. Now, the goal of life is to attain Krishna, but Krishna had appeared more or less as his son. Why would he leave home? Sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? You're kind of walking away from your goal almost. But no, he had a purpose. The Lord had a purpose, and part of the Lord's purpose was what Kardama did. He showed that even if in that situation you're supposed to, the husband, at least in Brahmin families, would or Kshatriya family, would show that higher example of the goal of life. It sounds contradictory to Guru Bhakti's point in one sense, but it's not in the real sense of the term, because it's for the highest purpose of all. So different examples are to be seen in different situations. I mean, we see Lord Chaitanya, he's told the Kurma Brahmana, don't leave home, stay at home. Kurma Brahmana wanted to leave home and go with Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya said, no, don't be a fool, don't be a madman. Stay here. Yaradeka Tadakara Krishna Upadesha Maragaya Guru Tarani Desh. You stay here and you preach Bhagavatam, like where you are now. You don't need to go anywhere. Where you are now, preach. So different situations require different, you could say, responses. Prabhupada did not go to the Western world for a comfortable life, that's for sure. He left that all behind in Vrindavan. He left it behind in his family life to go to Vrindavan. Then in Vrindavan, where he was spiritually very comfortable, no risk really, left there to go to America. He didn't want to sit in an airy room. One of his godbrothers, Vyas Tirtha Maharaj, who was the head of the Chaitanya Mat in Calcutta, Prabhupada asked him if he could give him sannyas, and he said maybe later on. But the first thing is you come here and stay with us. We have nice, airy, well-lit rooms you can stay in. We will look after you, and if we think it's worth looking at the books, maybe we will publish them, or maybe in the future send you to the West. Prabhupada wasn't impressed. He didn't want to live in an airy, comfortable room. He wanted to preach Krishna consciousness. That was why everything he did at this stage of his life was for that purpose. And certainly he didn't come to America to live in a little tiny town in Pennsylvania. And yes, he's doing some preaching, something going on, but that wasn't why he came to America. He came to America to really see if he could fulfill his spiritual master's order to preach in America, to preach in the English language. So he took that absolute risk. But what is there to lose? I mean, after all, we said the other day, you've got to lose everything anyway. You can't keep anything, we've got to lose everything, isn't it? No matter what we've got to say goodbye to it sooner or later. Family, money, house, wife, everything. Car, mobile phone, you have to say goodbye to everything, isn't it? What do you think? What do you think? You don't? No thinking. Can't keep anything. This body, you have to say goodbye to this body. Even our false teeth, you have to say goodbye to everything. Your bank balance, you've already said goodbye to that one anyway. Nothing there. So, what really, you haven't got anything to lose. We're always afraid of, the unknown. But read Bhagavatam and see. Study the Bhagavatam and understand how Krishna works for a higher purpose.
In the letter Prabhupada wrote to Narayan Maharaj, one of the sentences, one of the statements he made was, although people here are outcast, I'm still not afraid to speak about Varnashrama Dharma.
All the people here are outcasts.
I'm still not afraid to speak about Varnashrama Dharma.
Not afraid of speaking about it.
Varnashrama.
You say he wasn't afraid to speak about Varnashram.
Yeah, Prabhupada mentioned that.
Yeah, he mentions Varnashram. They're outside the Varnashram system, therefore you're Antyaja, you're an outcast. We're all outcasts, and the whole world's an outcast practically, in that sense. So, I mean, Prabhupada was writing to Narayan Maharaj. He wasn't necessarily addressing somebody at that stage anyway. He was writing to a devotee who knew these things very well. So yes, he was. I mean, there are many indications. I know we are perhaps a little bit hesitant, confused, or unsure about what Prabhupada really had in mind when it came to Varnashram. Some people may not think, maybe they're more convinced what to be done, but generally people are a little bit hesitant about this principle of life, reorganizing society. It's not just Varnashram, it's Daivi Varnashram, but organizing society in the way that the Lord would want, the way that would be more favorable for becoming Krishna conscious, and not just the way society is now, which is based on artificial monetary systems. And people are all over the place. They don't know who they are, where they are, what they're doing half the time. But a very structured society based on the God-given system of Varna, Ashram, and Dharma, according to one's nature, according to one's qualities.